Welcome to Rip It Up, Start Again. We are bringing you disruptors that have questioned the status quo, and using technology, they have performed to the needs, to the consumers in real time, in real connections in real time to their real needs. Today, we're covering data, power and influence in a digital world. Here are speakers' stories, sharing their insights and pitfalls, and how they use technology to empower new propositions to match new audiences in more engaging ways. We hope to inspire more successful innovation across tech and industry. With thanks to our hosts, Disruptive Live, we're bringing the most disruptive emerging startups around today. After hearing our speakers' stories, we will join them all together in a Q&A panel. Please tweet any questions you have at Rip It Up the event. Our first speaker today is Deakins. He's the founder of Citizen Me. StJohn has a grand mission for the 21st century digital age. He's empowering the online individual. Citizen Me's platform enables users to take control of their data and utilize it like never before. Brands can access insights from real citizens super quickly. Citizen Me is giving back control to our own data. So let me introduce Deakins.
Hi, Deakins, and I love the internet. I spent the 90s kind of bringing online companies like Lloyd's List and kind of international newspapers. I helped British Airways kind of get online at the end of the 90s, companies like T-Mobile. In the noughties, I spent the decade helping the last billion people to come online through the mobile internet. And it's kind of been the last 20 years of my life. I got to 2011 and I just sold a mobile internet company, and had the chance to look at kind of what my next project was going to be. So the first thing I looked at was, for my two young daughters at the time, what can I do that's going to have a big impact on their life, not just for the next 5 years, but the next 20, 30, 40 years. And that kind of gave me the opportunity to really to look at what the big things that are going to happen over the next 10, 20, 30 years. Green tech is an obvious one, but that's not my core skill set. So I looked at kind of the internet, which is what I know, and it gave me the chance to look at the fundamentals of how the internet works and where the big opportunities are to kind of help make things better. And the more I looked at it, the more I realized that, crap, we've got some problems, right? If you look at the way that the internet works, we're moving into a decade now where we have 7 billion people all connected up to the internet, all online. We're a world of AR and virtual reality. We're in a world of everyone being on social media, everyone being connected up. We have sensors everywhere. And of course, we're moving into the AI world, where all of those Internet of Things in our home are basically all connected up and pinging back home. All of those things are driven on personal data. All of those things work and are fueled by our personal data. So we have this $1 trillion internet market, which is all fueled by our personal data. We all participate in that marketplace, but none of us have any value. None of us have any stake. None of us have the ability to participate as individuals. And yet, it's all of our data that actually makes everything work. It's a big problem, right? So how do we fix that? Do we rip everything up and start again? Do we start over? The answer is kind of no and kind of yes. We can evolve it very quickly if we can give us all the ability to have control of the value of the data. So we can all have the ability and the means to to participate in those marketplaces. We then can evolve the internet and make the internet better for all of us over the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years. So the first thing we did, we built out an application. We launched it in 2014, got loads of great coverage. It's a year past Snowden. So we're looking at enabling people to lock down their data, see which apps on their phone were doing good and bad things, tap on a little traffic light red, and go into Twitter or Facebook and shut down the bad things you didn't want happening. That got great pickup, 14,000 downloads in a couple of weeks. great press coverage, etc. But then we looked at the retention and what people are actually doing and how they were using the application. And we realized that people don't actually want admin. No one needs more admin in their lives. What people want is ease and value. So we had to rip it up and start again. We basically took the application, we did a lot of behavioral research, we spent a lot of time trying to understand what really drives behavior online and what drives people to participate and what value people actually want. And we've ended up with an application where we have a very simple timeline of activities you can do with your data. We have a self-service interface for any brand to come in and talk to people in real time. Thousands of people, of particular audiences. You want to talk to millennial mums in Newcastle, you want to talk to late teens in Brazil. You can basically go in and talk to those people in real time and have data conversations. That platform is now working very well. We came out of closed beta at the beginning of the year. We are on just about 100,000, we'll hit this week, 100,000 active citizens. We're doubling up revenues every month, and we're growing about 3% per week. So it's now up, all because we ripped it up and started again. Thank you.
Thank you very much, StJohn. So, brands can actually connect real data with real people within 15 minutes. Now, that is disruptive. I think you'll all agree. Our next speaker, Juliet Eccleston, has jumped out of the corporate world, and she has co-founded AnyGood. And Juliet has created a peer-to-peer recruitment platform where professionals recommend professionals for roles, allowing us to use our own communities. The team's opened up a new dynamic way of monetizing the curation of our own networks, cutting through and diversifying across all types of backgrounds. So looking forward to hear Juliet. Please, the stage is yours.
61,700 pounds. That was the amount of money that an agency earned from hiring me as a contractor. Initially, that was just for a 6-month contract that then extended, which is why the amount was so much. But it's also the amount of money that made me so driven to look at the recruitment industry and think that there must be a better way. So I started to look as a hiring manager and both as a candidate. What are the things that are wrong with the recruitment industry? And I spoke to many HRDs, many candidates, and also to recruitment agencies themselves. And what I found was it's not just about the money. It's not just about how much margin an agency may be making or about the fact that there's a conflict of interest with agencies who could perhaps try and get a certain salary because a margin would be dependent on it. It's also not just about the quality of candidates in terms of the significant volume of CVs that get sent through to each job. It's predominantly about the lack of trust with the overall process and the inefficiency of the process, and that there appears to be no other alternative within recruitment. So what I started to look at was this trust issue. And trust for me is really the thing that is the disruptor. It's the thing that's changing everybody at the moment. It's us moving from a model where we previously wouldn't have trusted strangers, we wouldn't have got into cars with strangers, and now we're getting into cars with strangers because they have a spare seat. We're sharing people's homes. We're looking at recommendations to who should take our dog for a walk. We're looking at nannies. We're sharing private jet flights, not myself, but people are sharing private jet flights. And so all of these things are moving from trusting large corporates and institutions much more to an individual people basis. It's much more about power to the people than it is to power to large organisations. And that really fascinated me. So that, in terms of people being able to trust other people because of the transparency of that process versus the industry that I'd seen in recruitment, was something that fascinated me. So I started to look, what if Airbnb did recruitment? What if Uber did recruitment? And all of those types of things started to come together whilst I was still in the corporate world, still delivering change programs, which is what my profession was, but started to think there has to be a better way. How might we bring that same movement into the recruitment industry? And so that's where I started to look at delivering a peer-to-peer recommendation platform. Peer-to-peer recruitment is always the best way to get people for roles, whether it's employee referrals or whether it's just people you know. And that's always the way that I found my best roles. But one of the things that hadn't existed was a way for that to scale. So what myself and my co-founders did, we all worked at Egg back in the 90s together, so we're used to a little bit of disruption. We started to look at a platform that would enable people to transition their trust from an old model that was outdated to a new model. And so we started to think, what are the things that need to be in place? It needs to be something where people are held accountable for their recommendations. So we created a platform where people can join as members, professionals join our network, and they recommend other candidates for roles. Clients then have the opportunity to rate each recommendation, just as you would rate your Uber driver. So the way it works is clients share roles with our network. Our professionals are from all sorts of different backgrounds. We have people from large corporates, we have people from startups, and we have roles from startups and from large corporates too. And they're shared amongst all of our members. Clients don't pay a platform fee, they don't pay a percentage margin, they only pay something when somebody is hired. So what we're trying to do is to really say that we'll only need you to pay something when we've actually added value. From a member perspective, members also don't need to have any platform fee, there's nothing to be a member. But what we do is when a client shares a role and a member is recommends a candidate, if that person's hired, then we share the profit of that recommendation with the member. Currently, we have the pricing structure is completely transparent and fixed. So a client pays just £6,500 per hire, and the member receives £1,500 if that candidate is hired. And what we're trying to do is to create much more of a movement of giving power to the people. So just as people who had a spare room, who had a spare seat in their car, from a professional's perspective, we have networks of people that we know. We have information about who's great and who's not so great. And that is a professional network that can be leveraged, not only so that we can help other people and our colleagues get better roles, but also so that we can continue to bring more efficiency to the process. And with our network, what we try and do is to make it so that we proactively curate it. So clients can be confident that they're not only getting people from different geographies, different industries and different experiences, but also in terms of the different underrepresented groups that we try and represent. So what I'd ask you today is to think about whether you'd like to join a network where you can leverage your network and look at joining the AnyGood platform, becoming part of the movement to bring fairness and transparency to the recruitment industry.
Thank you very much, Juliet. So our next speaker is actually remote, so we're going to take a little short break here, and then we'll be coming back to hear Julia Cordray from Peeple. She founded Peeple, which some of you may or may not have known, but was the one that triggered Black Mirror's nosedive episode on reputation. Hi, so you're back with Rip It Up, Start Again, the live event. As I left off, we're now introducing Julia Cordray of Peeple.com. She's the founder, and Peeple is a platform that allows the ratings of individuals. Embodies Andrew Grove's mantra, a fundamental rule in technology, says that whatever can be done, will be done. And she has achieved against all odds. Peeple is the world's largest reputation platform where you can build your reputation in one place and take it with you everywhere you go. It's your trust metric. Let me hand over now to Julia, who is actually remote, and let's hear from her about Peeple and her journey.
Thank you, Lulu. Rip It Up, Start Again is literally the perfect venue to tell you my story. I have ripped up my product twice now and started again. Apparently in tech it's called a pivot or an iteration, but oh my god, is it painful and super expensive. If nothing else, by the end of my talk here today, I want you to be able to answer one question. What if you can use your reputation as currency everywhere you go? This was the question that my best friend and I wanted to answer in April of 2014. She actually called me up and she wanted to rate and look up her babysitters, her neighbors, even the Starbucks barista down the street. She wanted to feel safe in her transient townhouse complex in Southern California. So she asked me to help her because at the time I was running my recruitment agency and I definitely knew how to look up information about people. Now that question led me down a really interesting path. So I went off to my lawyer, I talked to him, I wanted to make sure it was a safe idea to rate people. And him being at the mercy of anonymous ratings, and he was frustrated with the current rating systems and lack of systems, he actually became our first shareholder on the spot. So maybe we were actually onto something. Then I started talking to developers and they were so pumped and excited to build this concept that they encouraged me to take it into stealth mode. So I raised a bunch of money through friends, family, accredited investors, moved to San Francisco, worked with the top developers and my best friend. It did not go as planned. Right before launch, I sent out emails to the Canadian press about Peeple and how these two female founders are launching the Yelp for People. No one cared and no one responded. So I got smarter. I contacted my friend who's a journalist and I gave him the world exclusive on Peeple. And then more interviews happened. It went viral across Canada. Everything was positive. Everyone was super, super excited until it hit the American press. And that's where the Washington Post called us the world's most terrifying app. They said we were a bullying app. Now, this was the worst possible outcome. And I gotta tell you, our product wasn't even out yet, and we were being taken for a media roller coaster. Global, viral media attention. I was terrified. I'm talking death threats, online hate, trolls, media and producers blowing up my phone. So, what did I do? I decided I need to reach 40 million people as quickly as possible. So I went on Dr. Phil. I tried to calm the world down, and then I had John Oliver just making fun of me. It was not working. It was 2 months of overwhelming attention with me as the face of it. So we took a step back. And we asked ourselves some new questions. Why is everyone so upset? Why are they so scared of our concept? What features do they not like? I went back to my development team, made all the changes that I got as feedback from that global virality, and I actually gave the world what they asked for. And then we finally launched our iOS product in Canada and the US 6 months after the media attention. It did not go as planned. 40,000 users later, I knew we had to change something. So we asked some deeper questions. Why does Peeple exist? What can we do that no one else is doing to build trust on a global scale? So I moved back to San Francisco. I entered an accelerator program, and that was where, at my lowest point, the moment that I actually wanted to give up, that I found my answers. These answers actually won me the pitch competition in Silicon Valley. So let me explain. Reputation API for the share economy. This was the answer. And so let's say you're new on Airbnb and you want to rent that sweet place in the south of Spain, and you keep getting rejected because no one trusts you, you have no reviews yet. Everyone loses in this scenario. Airbnb doesn't get the sale. You don't actually get to rent that sweet place in the south of Spain. And the owner doesn't actually make money. Why? Why did this happen? There is no trust. So this is where my company Peeple comes in. And so Peeple is a platform where you actually build your reputation in one place and port it with you everywhere you go. The way you do that is you click on a button, you port your reputation link, which is unique to you, and it displays your reputation in real time. Or you can even share another reputation link to receive reviews. This is paramount to the success of your future, your successful relationships, your business ventures, your career, your opportunities on a global scale. In a world where we're so digitally connected yet so physically disconnected, how do we build trust? People is the trust metric in your transactions. You can now buy and sell more products and services, especially in the share economy and marketplaces, using trust. Companies like Airbnb, Amazon, eBay, VRBO can license our API to display your reputation to their users in order to close the deal. Everybody wins. Imagine building your business faster on Amazon or eBay because you're trusted. Imagine getting better quality clients because you're trusted. Imagine getting that dream job you've always wanted, getting that rental you actually wanted in the south of Spain. This is all possible by using Peeple to gain trust. This is perfect timing. Millennials are literally taking over the population, and they don't want to buy stuff anymore. They want to rent it and share their resources. They're using the growing share economy, and they actually trust robots and computers more than humans. So I want you to really consider how your reputation will become currency everywhere you go. I want you to think about how you're going to spend that currency. I want you to think about how you're going to protect your reputation. How are you going to get more of what you want in a digital age? I really hope you choose Peeple to help you get there. We're launching the world's largest reputation platform in August, and I sincerely hope you'll join us. Thank you.
That was great, really interesting. I was thinking while I was hearing you talk, pity you didn't know about StJohn. Because they would have been totally awesome for producing you the insights quicker, more dynamically across maybe America before you hit America. That would have been interesting.
Absolutely.
Anyway,
there's so many
I can't actually hear Julia at the moment, so I'm going to start off with some questions locally. So to you two, what large problem are you solving?
Well, hopefully it's fairly straightforward. I mean, basically, we're enabling the internet to work much more efficiently for everyone, be that individuals obviously first, but also for businesses. The internet's really opaque. If you look at kind of what happens with data flows, no one really knows what's happening. There's massive amounts of fraud. It's almost kind of lots of organized crime because you can make billions of dollars without anyone realizing. So huge numbers of issues, and basically actually by giving us all, empowering us with our data, we can fix a lot of those issues very, very quickly. The question is how quickly we can scale that up.
So what you're saying, like in the real scenario right now today, we didn't know this when Facebook first launched, for example, but we're doing all the work. It's all our content. We're doing all the work. We're putting things out there. We're creating these bubbles for us as citizens, and of course they're benefiting from it. financially. And we didn't know about this when it started, fair enough, but now we're very aware of it. The transparency, the technology that we have before us has given us this transparency. So you coming along and you're saying, right now, power to the people, you now can make money out of your data.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you can do things with your data. And actually, the brand, I just want to know a bit more about from the brand side of things. So brands, enterprises who need to touch with real, genuine people.
Yeah.
Just go in a bit more detail into that.
So the first market we're tapping into, we actually started off, as I covered in the talk, we started off looking at advertising. And then actually for advertising, you need about 3 million people per market to really kind of get going.
Right.
Massive on-ramp needed. And so you need something which engages 3 million people before you can actually start making money, which is a bit of a gap. If you look at things like market research, there are lots of different personal data marketplaces. And if you look at market research as a first marketplace, you need about 10,000, 20,000 people per market. So it's actually quite achievable. And with using that as the first marketplace, we can give people real-time, deep data insights, kind of big data insights, but with all the data distributed to all of us as individuals. So we don't hold any data. We don't want to hold any data. We're a small data company, but we have lots and lots of big data, which is all owned by the individuals who have the app on their phone. So as a brand, you can go and talk to kind of any audience in real time and have that kind of data conversation. You can look at, want to talk to people who have definitely got a driving license, who are fairly conscientious, and talk to them about kind of insurance. You can go and talk to those audiences, and it's anonymous by default on both sides.
Right.
So as a brand, they don't need to know who you are. You don't know who the individual is, but we vouch for the attributes. We guarantee they're real people, they're not bots. So we have this kind of clean, fresh data instead of having old school silos of data. We make the entire ecosystem much, much more efficient, much cleaner, much better for everyone.
So it's almost like a bridge, isn't it? It's just you're enabling everyone to channel through this data and work with this data. You're not owning any of the data. So obviously this answers the other question of GDPR.
Sure.
You're completely au fait.
Yeah, but beyond that, because we don't actually hold any data, so we don't have to worry about the only thing we hold at the moment is an email address.
Right.
Everything else is out on app. So GDPR doesn't impact us. And data is now a massive liability on the balance sheet. For the last 10 years, we've been looking at data being an asset, and the CFO is trying to work out, if you're a telco, how we can make $1 billion off that asset.
Yeah.
But actually now it's a massive risk.
Yeah.
And you've got to balance the risk and the reward. And if as a marketer, you just want to have insights, why don't you just talk directly to people?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Julia, I don't know if you can hear us, but would you like to comment on anything with regards to StJohn's company specifically before you answer the question of the large problem that you're solving?
I think it's best I stick to my wheelhouse. I think it's great that he's making data transparent, and I do, sincerely believe that the more we can harness our data as an individual user, the more powerful we become. We deserve to have that power back. So I'm really impressed with what he's doing. In regards to people, I sincerely believe that there's this huge gap of trust, similar to what Juliet was saying before. In a digital age, how do you build trust? And when there's all these new platforms coming on board, these new share economy platforms, these new marketplaces, how are we going to trust each other? And there's a huge gap there. And that's the gap that people wants to fill. I want to make sure that you get everything that you want as quickly as possible using trust. And so, if we can get there faster and definitely be in line with the way the world is changing in sharing those resources and doing business on a global scale and having relationships on a global scale, I think that the transparency of who each of us are in a digital world is paramount to the success of us all.
Couldn't agree more. Juliet? Yeah, building on, there's obviously a theme of people power. I think that's moving towards and away from corporates and more to giving power back to the people with and recognising that people have resources that perhaps large corporates may have been taking advantage of previously that now we can put back in people's hands. And on that sort of trust conversation, it is incredibly difficult, I think, for whether you're a B2B or B2C to help people realise that there is that sort of leap of faith, that transition of trust from an old way of doing things to a new way of doing things. Certainly in the recruitment industry, sometimes it doesn't matter how bad it is at the moment, for somebody to trust something new is quite a big leap. And so there's many things that you need to put in place for that, for people to be able to do that, not just transparency, but also as an organisation, what is it that your mission is? What's your intent around your software and your processes? What is it that sits behind everything that you're about? And I think that's going to become much more important as an organisation, to be able to prove to people that you have integrity and you have ethics, and you're not just trying to improve a process and build efficiency in, you're actually trying to make things much, much better than they have been. And you're trying to extend what's possible as a human rather than replace what's possible as a human.
Well, absolutely. I mean, this part of the reason why I actually founded Rip It Up, Start Again in the first place was because I recognise in all disruptors, they're actually, they've got this sort of, the ethos and the values and the ethics of making good for everybody. You know, it's not just about me.
Yes.
You know, it's about enabling this, well, identifying, because obviously disruptors, entrepreneurs, they identify needs. Their insight, their view of understanding insights are paramount. So that's what that makes them entrepreneurial. But the disruptors, who all seem to be quite isolated actually, they don't just want it for themselves. They want it for the good of other people as well, which was a really interesting insight when I first hit on it, because that's what I had always been like. And I just went, wow, so I'm not the only person on the planet, you know? So that was point of it. So I'm glad we brought that up.
It's funny, there's a great movement just taking off actually called Linky Brains, which is all about kind of the scene, which is all about kind of there are particular individuals who kind of make connections, but they all feel actually quite isolated. They feel that generally kind of don't perform as well as they could have done at school. And there's actually common themes all the way through. And so that movement's kind of picking up, which is quite interesting to see. Just on the trust point, we do a trust tracker and we look at kind of the top 25 brands in the UK as part of the insights packages we do. And we can see there's a gradual decline in trust over the last year. Top 25 brands, 1,000 people every month we go out to. And you can see that for us, it looks like we're hitting kind of a seminal moment where things are becoming transparent, and that makes people uneasy.
Yes.
Almost like an uncanny valley of data, if you like, where things are becoming much more kind of real to people as individuals, and they can't really kind of like leave it to one side and forget that it's a bit uncomfortable. And that's actually driving a lot of change, and potentially that could change very, very quickly in terms of kind of the way that we all view our digital lives. Right?
Yeah, it's really interesting, because when I remember speaking to somebody about, again, Facebook, I know it's very topical at the moment, GDPR, but it was, you know, would the shareholders sustain if they started paying back? You know, and big question, obviously everybody I asked the question to says, no, don't be so stupid. You know, shareholders are just not going to pay, you know, they can't, and my response to that is, oh, so they're all legacy minded? Or are you saying that all investors are legacy minded and they're not understanding this dynamic of change, which what is going to bring to them? Because, you know, if that's the case, my next question is, well, are they just going to go out of business? Because how many people have you heard saying, I'm withdrawing from Facebook? You know, it's happening more and more.
Yes.
I mean, nobody anticipated this situation when they launched, you know, completely fine. But every company in the history of mankind has to change at some point. That is the point. Do you remember, we know the figures about innovation. If you don't innovate, if you don't invest back to innovate, to create change, because disruption and innovation is about change.
That's fascinating, because Facebook effectively in 10 years have become a legacy business. Right?
Exactly.
So
how short?
The market's already moved.
So
the question is, can they move with it? And Zuckerberg said back in January that this year, the thing he was going to look at, because he looks at a new thing every year, was just decentralization of data, and events have caught up before he can kind of get to the end of the year. With things like analytica happening. I think if we can get people participating, the markets are much, much bigger, right? They're far, far bigger if we can get everyone participating. So Facebook's actually got an upside to helping people participate, is whether they can think beyond their legacy position, bizarrely.
How do they disrupt their own business model? How do they create, you know, because it's not necessarily about disrupting and, you know, all the toys come out of the pram. It's about maneuvering, isn't it? It's about, you know, making these new channels. You know, one company has a business model, now they have 20,000 business models. How do you manage that? And of course, technology is enabling this to happen. That's how I see it. And it's about managing the stairway. You know, how many steps do you take in what number? You know, what are the algorithms behind the support of this change and this dynamism? But if you don't attitudinally understand that, you're hiding to nothing. Which brings me to my second, segues me nicely into my second question, which is, so what's the advantage of your product over other existing products? So what I'm really asking here is, you know, now we're using technology in a way to give us transparency. This obviously enables us to understand our competition much better. And does this enable us to innovate very quickly and efficiently and keep ahead of this curve, because that's what we have to do?
I certainly think to a certain extent. I think there's, although I'm a technologist by trade, I do have some nervousness about the rate at which technology is moving, just because I'm not sure everybody's ready for it, and I don't yet think we really know what the impact of some of the changes are. And so, and in some instances, it's technology for technology's sake, but that's still good because we're exploring and we're learning what we're capable of. And so, yeah, I think certainly it allows people to see much more and compare different services much better. But I still think there's that, what you can't always see is what's the intent behind. So when you look at that there's various different AI recruitment platforms that will no doubt be coming out. There's blockchain recruitment platforms coming out. But how can you tell how it works? How can you tell that AI platform hasn't just discounted a load of people that are from underrepresented groups because it didn't include them in an algorithm? You can't tell that unless
but that's where people fills the gap. Right?
Yeah. So that's the difficult thing really is although there's a certain amount of transparency, actually understanding it all, a bit like before you used to be able to lift a bonnet on a car and see exactly what was going wrong and plug it back in and fix it. Now it's a black box, and it feels like technology has moved much more to a black box where you have as a client, you have to be able to have more indications that you can trust an organisation because you can't see what's actually going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, that's a very good point. What about Sinjin?
In terms of how we're different to the existing players, we're in two areas. We're in the market research, which is still a little bit Mad Men 1960s, hasn't really changed much. Everyone talks about innovation because everyone knows they need to innovate, but no one quite knows what to do. Still very survey-based. They've just about come from telephones on online, and now they've got to go mobile, and it's not responsive, and they have big grid surveys and that kind of thing. So it's very, very clunky, and it should really be intuitive. You shouldn't need to ask questions. The data's there already, right? And then we have big data, which is very oil, silo, exploitative. I've got someone like a kind of Equifax will have hundreds of millions of records and thousands of data points in a massive hackable silo, and they get hacked, right?
Yeah.
And it's on the data. It's actually really, really, it's 5-10 years out of date. Yeah. It's mismatched. It's crude. It's crude oil, right?
Yeah.
And we need to. For us, we basically moved to something which is real time, it's fresh, it's validated. It completely clears up the system. So for us, the competitive positioning is actually quite straightforward. The question is how we scale up quickly.
Yeah, and keep moving, presumably.
Exactly.
That's really, really interesting, isn't it? So, I mean, again, validation of idea, therefore. What at what point was the validation? Or is there anything more that we can explore in the validation of the ideas?
I think from our perspective, it's constant. It's constant validation. Firstly, recognising that there's a problem.
Yeah.
I think with an industry or with something that you're trying to fix. What is it you're trying to fix? And then continually validating every single reference point and every single thing that you do, and not being precious to the original proposition.
That's a very good point.
And certainly it's something that our basic fundamental mission is around bringing fairness and integrity to an industry, and so whatever that takes, that's kind of what you have to hold true as your goal, and certainly our North Star. And so for example, when we first set out to do AnyGood, we started to bring members in for recommendations, and what we didn't quite realise, that as members recommended other members to join, that our network of members would grow into something that wasn't a representation of society. And so that didn't fit with our mission. That was something that would increase a problem rather than fix it. And so we had to then think, so we need to deliver our mission, we need to change what we're doing, and we need to engage with underrepresented groups, bring people in. So we actually have to proactively curate the network, and that was something that arrived as a result of sticking to the mission and then thinking, how do we do this? Therefore, we need to change as we go and be really flexible and really very closely monitoring what it is that you're delivering, what outcomes you're having, and what knock-on impacts you're having on the world around you.
And does everybody in your business constantly look at this?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So there's a clarity of vision that we have, and so there's constant opportunities that come up, and it's probably the same for everybody that's in the similar situation where there's sort of, there's an opportunity here, should we go down this route? And you sort of go down a little bit in your mind and you think, no, that's not right, we need to go back to here, okay? And so there's so many opportunities that you get and different partnerships you could belong to and different groups and different people that we could engage with, but it always has to be brought back into the
Come
group.
back to the story you're telling.
Yes, yeah.
Interesting.
Great.
So the business model. How do we make money? Do you want to expand a little bit on how
For
you
us,
plan?
it's about enabling to participate in value. And just that last question. I mean, we had the first version of the application. We realised that we needed to look at kind of deeply understand how people actually behave with the data. And it's not about data; it's about insights and self-knowledge. So we can show people information about themselves which is enlightening to them.
Mm-hmm.
And as you do that, you create a value off the data, and that value is then a great value to businesses as well. If people then choose to explicitly trade that for cash, we take a revenue share. So we only actually make money when our citizens are making money and they're creating value.
Right.
And that's a core driver. But it's taken us. We had a couple of one large pivot along the way. And it's about the core value is about empowering people with their data, and then it's working out how you can do that.
Right.
And doing lots of iteration along the path to that.
Okay, which I think is the story of every startup in
Sure.
using technology. It's not just technology's moving at a breakneck speed. It's actually understanding how you apply it to your story or your business models. And then, like you say, as soon as a business model starts looking successful, it then escalates.
Yes.
And obviously Julia shared her story, which escalated beyond what anyone would imagine. So how do you plan to make... yours is fairly straightforward, isn't it?
It is straightforward and really
easy.
based around a lot of sort of the models that are straightforward now, which I think is what people want to see more of, is people only paying when you're adding value. And that's really what ours is based on, compared to sort of executive search firms where there may be a third payment, so a company will have paid 2/3 before they've seen any candidates.
Yeah.
And so it's really, really sort of, de-risking that, making it a completely no-brainer in terms of share a role and see what you get back if you hire somebody you pay.
Brilliant, brilliant. So trust and de-risk, it's kind of it's kind of a common theme, isn't it?
Yeah.
Really. And what about scale of business? Is it too early to talk about scale?
For us, we've we hit the magic interaction in terms of those iterations last summer. We're now up at about 100,000 citizens on the base. We can grow that at 3 to 5% per week. So really, we're in a position now where we have clients and citizens in a two-sided marketplace. It's about now just scaling up. All of the growth so far has been organic, and we know where to spend money to kind of grow particular audiences much more quickly. So we're coming out of kind of the test and learn and iterate phase into the growth phase. So money we're raising is all for growth. It's all about driving the base up as quickly as possible.
Right, right. I should probably just explain to the audience that I've lost Julia on my feed. Julia, are you there? Julia, are you there?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, brilliant.
I'm here.
Would you, sorry, do you want me to go back? Are there any questions that you wanted to answer that we previously said?
Yeah, I'll probably just quickly focus on a couple things. One would be, the problem we're trying to solve is right now your reputation is built on multiple platforms. So you're on LinkedIn, you're building your reputation. You're on Airbnb, you're building your reputation. So we wanted to decentralize reputation and make sure it's full of good quality information and make sure that information can't be gamed, to make sure that users are not anonymous. And so, that's how we plan on solving what's currently broken with reputation platforms. In terms of actually monetizing our product, we have 3 main revenue streams. Of course, our main focus is that API for the share economy, which we would license to share economy companies and marketplaces. Another revenue opportunity we have is something called our people partnerships. And those are companies like Juliet's that may want to participate with us and pull data from our platform and maybe even have a custom implementation with their product to get them further along to where they want to go. These are also new marketplaces and share economy companies that don't even want to build a rating system, and so they just want to use ours. And the third revenue model that we're looking at is our licensing. So we can license our product out to HR directors, recruitment agencies, business owners, and this is all for the purposes of the recruitment side of things. Our platform will eventually integrate personality testing and things that are going to really help these HR professionals and these people looking for talent to zero in on users of our platform to hire them and get them on board faster. So these are the three main focuses we have right now. In terms of scale, that is every entrepreneur's magic question, and for me it's a tough one. I think that you can get creative and of course virality is exciting, but the actual strategy behind scaling is a whole other animal. And for us, frankly, I won't be able to really see what is gonna scale us faster until I start trying all these different guerrilla marketing tactics and trying all these things that you do traditionally in tech when you own a startup, and then do all these non-traditional things that we want to attract the talent. But above all, attract our users. Above all, it's going to come down to trust, transparency, and I think these are some of the key words that we're all discussing right now. It's trust and transparency in a digital age.
Absolutely right. Thank you. So did you want to quickly, we've got to wrap up now, but did you want to, the scale question, did you want to quickly answer?
So we're I guess a few years behind Citizen Me. So really ours has been testing minimum viable product initially. So really intentionally keeping the numbers to a certain amount so that we can really monitor behaviour closely and look at what are the drivers, what are the right drivers for people to recommend somebody for a role versus the wrong drivers. And so rather than going massively big and suddenly wondering what we've created, it's really about monitoring all of that first. And we're pre-marketing, so we've done nothing on that side. And so now, from this point forward, we're looking to scale rapidly and have more members join us.
Brilliant, brilliant. Well, good luck. Thank you so much, everybody, and Julia for coming on from British Columbia. And thank you very much to Disruptive Live. If you want to continue conversations, you want to tweet, review, please go to Disruptive Live. You'll also have a link on Rip It Up, ripitup.co, ripitupstartagain.co, sorry, is our website. But thank you very much to my speakers today.
Thank you.
Thank you.